Hey guys, Shah here, and in this video I'm going to talk about what essences I think Guardian Druids will be using in patch 8.3. I want to discuss the new essences, breaking down their major powers, minor powers, how to obtain them, and when you may see use of these essences in Mythic Plus. And then I want to discuss what major and minor essences I think will be meta in achieving high-level Mythic Keystone pushes this season. In Visions of N'Zoth, we are getting a grand total of 7 new essences, 2 for each specialization, including tank, healer, and DPS. Then we are getting 1 essence that is able to be used in every specialization, including tanks. These essences include Touch of the Everlasting, Strength of the Warden, and the Formless Void. Let's explore how these essences work and break them down for when a Guardian Druid may or may not want to use these. Our first essence, Touch of the Everlasting, is more than likely the first essence that you're going to be able to unlock once 8.3 goes live, since it's rewarded and ranked up through Magni's questline, which is going to be the main storyline for this patch. Further ranks will be rewarded through progress questlines, similar to Crucible of the Flame. Obtaining rank 1 of this essence will allow access to both the major and minor power. It reads as such. For the major power, your next death is prevented and you instead regenerate 20% of your maximum health and take 85% reduced damage for 3 seconds. This cannot occur more often than once per 10 minutes. The minor power is when you fall below 35% health, you gain 200 avoidance for 15 seconds, and your next active mitigation will last 30% longer. This can only occur every 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. So as you rank this essence up, you're going to be rewarded things like more health upon death, scaling up to 40% of max health, as well as being given a chance or a charge of survival instincts for further mitigation. The minor power will reward longer mitigation uptime, scaling up to 50% on our active mitigation, which is Iron Fur. At first glance, this essence seems pretty dope, but realistically, this will never be ran in keys. While survival instincts is a great damage reduction, it's not enough to act as a reward for dying, and 3 seconds of 85% damage reduction is not worth the DPS value loss that other essences bring to the table while being in the major slot. And Iron Fur realistically just isn't, it's spammable, so 50% increased duration on 1 Iron Fur isn't going to save our lives, especially after dropping below 35% health, where our rage is mainly focused on frenzied regeneration, or we are typically kiting, therefore not getting as much rage. On a positive note, this essence will probably see a lot of use for the raid, so if you do plan on raiding as Guardian Druid this patch, definitely a strong essence to have, especially on progression. Our second essence, Strength of the Warden, is awarded at rank 1 for participating in Horrific Visions, which is the main source of progression during 8.3. These scenarios will power up your essence as well as increase your Legendary Cloak's item level, along with your Corruption resistance, which will have a significant impact on player power later down the road. So obtaining this at rank 1 will allow access to the major and minor power that this essence possesses, and it reads as such. So for the major power, you taunt all nearby enemies, forcing them to attack you for 6 seconds. The minor power, every 2 seconds, you store 1,960 healing up to a maximum of your total health times 0.1, so in other words, 10% of your total health. When you dodge or parry an attack, you heal for all the stored healing. As you rank this essence up, you're going to be rewarded with increased dodge chance against the targets affected by this essence, along with a 50% increased damage done to the targets affected by Vigilant Protector, which is the name of the major power for this essence. The minor essence will have increased healing and increased percentage of the maximum health, and then also all tanks within your raid and party will have increased health by 3%, which stacks. So in raid, this is pretty viable, but in dungeons, you're more than likely going to be the only tank in your group. Unlike Touch of the Everlasting, this is an essence that I can be seen used in Mythic Plus. It has both offensive and defensive properties, which is nice as a major essence, and it has a relatively sustainable healing as a minor. This essence will act similarly to Bloodthirsty Urchin, which was a raid trinket that was awarded from Azara's Eternal Palace, and it was best in slot for most tanks, so with this essence acting similarly like it, we can see this being used as a minor. This will be extremely effective essence in some of the new raid encounters, but when it comes to Mythic Plus, I can actually only imagine this being good on skittish weeks, or if your composition is made up of many burst DPS and also does not have many options for misdirects or tricks of the trade, along with threat drops from different abilities like Fade or Blessing of Protection. So simply, this just gets outshined by other powerful essences, though it can't see a place being used in some keys. So lastly, we have the Formless Void, which is an essence that is accessible by all specializations. This essence is also obtained through raid progression and won't be seen until raid drops and the weeks preceding that. So you will be able to earn this rank 3 over several weeks, with depending on how fast your guild or group or how you individually progress this raid. So keep that in mind. Obtaining this at rank 1 will allow access to a major and minor power, and this essence reads as such. So the major power, you replicate the energy in your target's Heart of Azeroth, gaining access to rank 1 of the currently slotted major essence for the next 15 seconds. The Formless Void will go on cooldown for 50% longer than the base cooldown of the essence you replicated, and this does not work on passive essences. And then for the minor power, each time an ally within 40 yards uses an Azerite essence, you gain 273 main stats. So in our case, we gain 273 agility for 20 seconds. So as you progress this essence, you're going to see a reduction in cooldown, as well as an increase in essence rank depending on the rank of your Formless Void. So if you have a rank 1 Formless Void, you're going to copy a rank 1 essence. But if your Formless Void is rank 3, you're going to copy, when you do copy someone essence, it will be the rank 3 of that essence. So you're going to be looking to get this to rank 3 as fast as possible to get the maximum benefit. And then as that goes up, the cooldown of your essence will be reduced down to 30% instead of that 50%. So this can only be used on use essences like Focusing Iris or Blood of the Enemy, for example. The minor will also receive an increased main stat as well as haste for both you and your allies. More or less, this essence is seen more as a utility tool, and I can't really imagine being this essence being very powerful in almost any scenario for a tank in Mythic Plus. In lower keys, it could be good to take a DPS's Focusing Iris to do a lot of damage in a short period of time, but for the most part, this won't be a very viable essence in higher keys content, since there isn't a defensive benefit to this essence. The cooldown could be pretty significant, and there are just better competing essences for the major slot. So I can see this essence being used to increase self and group healing in raid content in certain situations where the off tank isn't doing much, or there's some 3 tank strategies that are being talked about where this can be a pretty potent essence for that 3rd tank to have. Outside of that, feel free to use this to meme with a Focusing Iris as a Guardian Druid while farming low keys, but outside of that, don't focus too much on getting this essence. So I just want to quickly go over what I think the metagame prediction is going to be. So this is completely opinionated content and should be taken with a very, very fine grain of salt. I think it's going to be fun to look back and see how wrong I was in a few months, or maybe a big fat I told you so. So when it comes to the major essence, you're going to want to use, I think Vision of Perfection will hold its ground as the best essence for Guardian Druids, and I have 2 main reasons for this. Not only was Visions extremely strong in Mythic Plus content in 8.2 and 8.25, but it's now getting a 12% buff to its uptime. This means more reliable procs, which was the one downside of using it in 8.2. Sometimes when you needed it most, it just wouldn't proc. With this buff coming to the essence in 8.3, even though it's small, Guardian Druids will have more consistent durability and have better sustained overall damage throughout an instance. The other reason I think Vision is going to be really strong is simply that it has both offensive and defensive properties. While Incarnation is a nice passive 15% mitigation on armor, it will also allow us to use Mangle, and it cleaves now 3 targets. Taunt is basically spammable on a 1.5 second cooldown, and Thrash cooldown is removed, so it is spammable, which has a lot of synergy with our Earth Warden talent in our 90 tree. Those are basically the prime reasons I think Vision will be best in slot for Guardian Druid 8.3. There's some smaller reasons, but these are the big 2 that I think makes Vision such a strong essence for Guardian Druid. So when it comes to minor essences, there are a few good options to choose from, and there's a lot of valid reasons for choosing them. Those essences include Conflict and Strife, Aegis of the Deep, Nullification Dynamo, Sphere of Suppression, Crucible of the Flame, and the Formless Void. So here's my rationale. So Conflict is always going to take up a slot. The flat versatility it gives you is insane. It's a flat 5% damage and healing increase, and a small damage reduction, which almost has a 100% uptime. Just depends how quickly you chain pull and keep that buff up. This leaves you with 2 slots left, and thanks to Blizzard giving us access to a 3rd minor essence slot once we reach level 75 starting in 8.3, which I'm estimating this will be achievable within 5 to 6 weeks, depending on how much time you want to put into your Heart of Azeroth. Since Beguiling is going away, we're going to see bigger pulls done at the start of dungeons. Freehold and Toll de Gore are notorious for this. Aegis of the Deep will see a lot more play when there are plans to pull towards 10 targets, anywhere between 8 and 10 targets, since the essence scales very well with the amount of targets that are near you, all the way up to 10 targets. This will be replaced with Nullification Dynamo when pulls are going to be smaller and or contain magic damage. And then your last slot, so once you reach level 75 neck, you're going to have access to a third slot. So this will be taken up typically by utility. Nullification Dynamo will be used if Aegis of the Deep is being taken and there's going to be larger pulls plus magic damage. Crucible of the Flame is also a good option, and it's used for bonus damage in both single target and AoE. Sphere of Suppression is going to be an extremely good option on necrotic or raging weeks. And then lastly, the Formless Void is going to be used if you're looking just to give a good benefit to both yourself and the group with haste and main stat for yourself. There's also a corruption bonus resistance with this, but I'm going to do more on that later. So just a quick recap. I just want to look back at this prediction video really quick. I think that the only new essences that are going to be used in major keys will be Strength of the Warden on certain weeks and depending on group composition. For a major essence, look to obtain Vision of Perfection since it's being buffed and works very well with our pre-existing toolkit for the Guardian Druid. Conflict and Strife is an essence that will always be slotted, so be sure to have that. Your last 2 slots can be swapped around based on dungeon and going along with a fixed pairing. Again, this is all opinionated on what I think Guardian Druids will be running in 8.3 Mythic Plus content. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys like this video, be sure to smash that thumbs up button and have a great rest of your night. And until next time, take care.